This module will cover the changes made to the Vista Imaging Clinical Capture software in patch 151. It is suggested that the previous modules in the Vista Imaging Clinical Capture 101 series be viewed prior to this module in order to become familiar with the basics of document scanning and image captures. For this presentation, I have already logged into Clinical Capture and selected a patient. There are several changes to the software which I will demonstrate, but you are encouraged to read the current Clinical Capture user manual for additional details about the application. I'll start by clicking the Select Progress Note button below the patient's name at the top left of the screen. The Select Note tab at the top left of the screen is the default setting, which displays the existing progress notes for the patient. Changes made on this tab are the List Options and Sign Note buttons, which were previously at the far right of the button bar, have been removed. However, they are still available from the Options menu. The More button has now been moved to the far right of the button bar. Clicking the More button will retrieve additional notes in the same increment as the List Options settings. For this example, the List Options is set to return 25 notes. If the patient has more than 25 signed notes, clicking the More button will display up to 25 additional notes, and the information panel below the button bar will show how many notes are being displayed. The date range displays the start from date as well as the date of the last TIU note in the list. When all TIU notes are displayed, the More button will be disabled or grayed out. The words Start From Date at the top right is a link for selecting a new starting date. Clicking the Options menu and List Options displays the Progress Note List Options, which has been modified to correctly limit the list of notes retrieved from the Vista Imaging system in increments of 25, 50, or a maximum of 100 at a time. The previous option to select a date range has been replaced with the Select Date button at the bottom left of the window, which will prompt the user for a starting date for prior progress notes. As discussed in previous training modules, after scanning or importing images, the person capturing the images needs to perform a final QA check to verify that the images were saved to Tier 1 storage. One way to do that is to select the latest patient images from the File menu in Clinical Capture. In previous versions of the software, a limited list of patient images with minimal information about each image was displayed in a separate window. Selecting an image from that list displayed it in the image box on the right side of the main capture window. When the QA review was completed, the user had to click the Cancel button to resume the capture process. A completely redesigned Patient's Latest Images window has been added in patch 151. It is accessed in the same way as in previous versions of the software. After an image has been saved, click the File menu option in the main capture window, select the most recent patient from the list at the bottom of the menu options, click the File menu option again, and select Latest Patient Images. The redesigned window includes a listing of current images for the patient, an image information panel, an image display panel, and an options menu. At the top left of the window is a pull-down option to change the number of images displayed in the list. The Refresh button to the right of this will refresh the list when clicked, and the More button, if activated, functions the same as described earlier. The ability to filter the list of images by selecting the Clinical Capture, Import API, or DICOM Gateway checkboxes has been added at the top center of the window. This gives the user the option to view only the images that were captured on a Clinical Capture workstation. Selecting an image from the list on the left will populate the new image information panel in the center of the screen, which displays the same information as in the Clinical Display Client. The image is now displayed on the right side of the screen instead of the main Clinical Capture window. Combining the list of images, the image information panel, and the image display is intended to assist the user in verifying that the captured image is indexed correctly and saved to Tier 1 storage. The new options menu choices are Image Count, which is the same as the pull-down option above the list of images, Retrieve Group Info for selected image, which will display the image group information that the selected image belongs to, Enter an image group IEN, which is an alternative way to select an image group by entering the ID number of an existing group, and Open Image in Clinical Display, which will allow the user to select an image and open it in a separate display client window. This option is intended to allow authorized users to annotate images in Clinical Display. It should be noted that any menu options referring to opening images in Clinical Display will only be available when Clinical Display Patch 167 is released. For the purposes of this demonstration, I am using a preliminary version of Patch 167. Another new feature in the Patient's Latest Images window is the ability to capture additional images to an existing image group. The image I have selected is part of an image group, as noted by the entry in the group column in the list. To add an image to the current group, click the Options menu and Retrieve Group Info for selected image. A Capture to Group button will be visible above the Image Information panel. Clicking the Capture to Group button will display a confirmation pop-up window to attach more images to the existing image group. Clicking the OK button will close the Latest Patient Images window and change the input focus to the main Clinical Capture window. From here, the user can capture additional images to the selected image group in the usual manner. An information panel at the top left of the image box will remind the user that images are being captured to an existing group. There is also a Cancel button at the right of the information panel. Returning to the Latest Patient Images option, new columns in the list of images are IEN, which is the image identifier, CID, which refers to the application that captured the image and is the same as the checkboxes at the top of the window, the group IEN, which is the group identifier. Images with the same group IEN are part of an image group, and images without a group IEN are single images. If a large image file is being captured, or if the network connectivity is slow, a file progress bar will become visible on the bottom status bar. This is a visual indicator to the user that the copy is working, but is taking longer than usual. A new option under the File menu in the main Capture window is Open Image for Annotation after Image OK. If this option is checked, the captured image will be opened in a separate window after Clinical Display Patch 167 is installed. A new choice under the Options and Toolbars is Configuration Buttons top and Configuration Buttons left, which allow the user to position the configuration toolbar at the top or the left of the Clinical Capture window. Positioning the configuration buttons on the left will enable the image box to be larger, making the image easier to view. The Help menu and sub-menu items have also changed in Patch 151. The option Vista Imaging Clinical Capture User Guide is actually a link to the current Clinical Capture User Manual on the Vista Imaging SharePoint. Other outdated Help menu items have been removed. Other new features include the list of consults in Clinical Capture by the same value as the list of consults in CPRS, and the consult ID number is now available so a user can compare the consult ID numbers in order to select the correct consult. Abstracts are now created for PDF files. Sometimes when the user would rotate, deskew, or apply other changes to the captured image, the changes would not be saved. The reported issues were mostly with PDF files, and the changes to captured images are now saved. It should be noted that the deskew and despeckle functions only work on 1-bit TIFF images and are disabled for other image types, and the invert function is disabled when capturing PDF images. A major change in patch 151 is that annotations are no longer created in the Clinical Capture application. The option to automatically open images for annotation in Clinical Display will become available with the installation of patch 167, and the Clinical Capture client will communicate with the Clinical Display client by sending Windows messages. Until Clinical Display patch 167 is installed, the user will have to manually open the image from the current display client to create annotations. The other items addressed in patch 151 can be found in the patch description document and in the current Clinical Capture user manual, which is on the Vista Imaging SharePoint, or can be accessed by clicking the Help menu option. This is the end of this module.